Good morning, I'm Derek with Extant Labs, sales rep for the Southeast region. Today I'm going to show you how to take down and clean and lube an Aero Precision 300 Blackout pistol, one of the most fun builds that I've gotten to play with lately. So we'll go through our tools and then we'll do a safety check. So we've got a bore snake, a dental pick, toothbrush, a brass mallet with a non-marring tip, and then a plastic punch so that we don't mar the finish on our lower. We're going to start by double checking. Chamber is empty. So first we're going to take out our takedown pins. I always start with the front rear pin and then work to the front. So those are clear. You can lift the upper and lower apart. As far as cleaning on our lower, mostly we want to just make sure that all the debris has been cleaned out of the trigger area and that there is no debris in the tracks here on the takedown pin retention area. We want to make sure that that's clean. And that especially want to double check also that there is no brass shavings and other metal that often accumulates here around where the hammer comes forward to hit the frame, and then also around the hold open device. Make sure every time we take it apart we want to ensure that our retention deep pin here is holding the buffer correctly and that is not wearing out. These do need to be replaced from time to time just from the forces that are coming to bear on them. So as we're inspecting the lower and the trigger area especially, we want to take actually a good flashlight and look down into the trigger area itself and down at the mechanism and make sure that there's no metal shaving pieces, the little pieces of brass casing and even parts of shaved off primers and things can get lodged down in there. I've seen them cause all kinds of problems with triggers. If you ever are at the range and you're shooting and you notice that when you pull the trigger you get a round fired, and when you let go of the trigger you get another round fired. Usually that's because there's a piece of metal stuck in this mechanism impinging one of these pins, or possibly one of these pins has walked out one side or the other and fallen down. That can cause that problem as well. So the simple fix is first check your pins and then tear the gun down and double check in here and make sure that there's no metal particulate in your lower receiver trigger area. So other than that, just wipe off anything that you see. This is kind of an area that catches a lot of carbon. When you shoot it, the carbon will often get around this area here, just from splattering off at the bolt area down into the actual trigger mechanism. So make sure you wipe off and clean everything that's there. We'll set that to the side. So we're going to switch over to the upper now. Grab our charging handle release levers and pull them back, and then we can lift that bolt up and out, our bolt carrier group up and out, and then carefully lift out the charging handle as well. And that's where we'll start cleaning. That's where the carbon especially sticks to and gets all over this area because of the way that the gas tube comes through right here. You always get buildup inside of this channel and to a lesser degree on the outside. But we always want to make sure that that area is clean of everything we can get off and then lubed well when we're finished. So we can get one of the Q-tips here and run that down inside that channel. Make sure that everything's out of there. Again, canned air comes in handy to get all this fuzz off. Anything that builds up on the back of your charging handle as well, just make sure that you get it out. You shouldn't get much buildup on the latches themselves, but sometimes it gets built up there. We'll set that to the side. As far as cleaning the barrel itself, we'll start with the bore snake. Drop that through and pull it through a couple of times. I like to put a healthy application of Echo 25 cleaning gel here at the the front part of your bore snake, and then also along the brush section, because that'll help to clean out the bore itself. It's not a substitute for an ammonia-based cleaner, but it does do wonders to get carbon fouling and the rest of the powder residue out of the barrel quickly and very easily. So now we can use the toothbrush and we can get out any of the stuff that has built up in here, and then use Q-tips to get down into the actual chamber area itself. So we want to make sure that we clean our feed ramp area especially, and then use a Q-tip to get all the way around the star of the chamber. And since this gun has been exclusively fired with Echo 2.5 in it, it has always been a snap to clean, and there is no carbon scale forming anywhere on any of these parts. So we get our Q-tip up in there and around the gas tube. That's one of the dirtiest areas of any AR. Get all the carbon out of that area. Just wipes right out because of the gel in the Echo 2.5. And then that's all nice and clean. So now we'll start with the bolt carrier group assembly. So working through the bolt carrier group itself, disassembly is pretty simple. Just use a fingernail to catch the edge of this cotter pin and pull it out. If you have no fingernails, I don't have much, but I can still grab it. You can always use a pick to catch it out, or the tip of a bullet. Set that to the side, and then gently tap it against your hand, and the firing pin itself will fall out. You can set that to the side as well, and then pull the bolt head forward, rotate, and then remove. Set that to the side, and then your bolt head itself will come out, and we can clean it. Now that's fully disassembled, everything's out. Get some patches, make sure that there's nothing on your firing pin. This one's pretty clean. Wipe off all the whatever has accumulated here. And then the bolt itself, the bolt head. Probably want to use a Q-tip on these channels right here. Get all the goop and gunk out. Each individual channel quickly, carefully, and then the bolt head, the bolt face itself. So use a light source if you don't have good lighting where you're at, to just look underneath the claw and make sure that there's no brass particles or metal shavings, partial primers or anything stuck anywhere in that surface. You can use your thumb to double check the spring tension on your ejector as well. One of the spots that will get quite dirty, there's no way to avoid it, is the tail of this bolt. So make sure you clean that quite well with, if you need to use a scrub brush, you can even use a steel wire brush to get that off if it's accumulated. This hasn't been accumulated very much, so it's pretty clean. And then inspect the cross hole as well and make sure that that is clear and clean. And then we can reassemble. So I'm going to start by getting a little bit of our Echo just on the surface. Apply it with my finger. You just want a light film all over the metal surfaces here. then we can slide that back in here. Just double check that this is clean as well and wipe off the outside. You will get some buildup on the bottom channels here. And quite a bit will accumulate on this area, especially in this cutout right here. If you've shot it quite a bit without cleaning, this area will be caked pretty thickly. If it's pre-lubed in some way, that will help significantly. And I have found that the gel component of this makes a drastic difference on cleaning time of that portion, especially of the BCG. Just wipe it off, and then we'll re-lube it. So, a generous line down the bottom and the outside. And then on those problem areas where the carbon really gets nasty. One of the other significant benefits is that gel, because of its physical nature, stays put here, where you have the gas tube sitting in here, like this, and when the bolt goes back and breaks that seal, all that excess gas and carbon splatters here on both sides of that, just goes shooting out of the tube. And that's why you get so much carbon buildup here and here, especially on this side, just because there's more room in the receiver on this side for it to go. And that's why that's such a messy area on any of these MSR platform rifles. Just get a decent amount around the tail of the bolt and we can reassemble. So I'll start with the bolt head itself. Line the hole up here so you can slide this back in, drop it in there, pull it forward, rotate it with your fingers so that it's straight, and then we can drop the firing pin back in, push it all the way in, and then reinsert our cotter pin. There we go. Cotter pin back in. Now we can reassemble the upper completely. We're going to lube up our charging handle. A little bead down the top, beads down the sides, a little drop on the front, and a bead down the middle of that channel. So we've got our charging handle. Slide that back in until it catches in the wings there. Do it about halfway in. Make sure that the bolt handle, the bolt head itself, is all the way forward, and then set that into the channel, and then push it forward until it locks in place. These latches will catch. That'll be all the way in, and this will be flush with the back of the upper. All right, so as far as going back to finishing up with the lower, when you have it apart, you want to make sure that you do a simple inspection of your trigger mechanism, make sure there's nothing visibly wrong. Before you start, you're probably going to have put it on safe, but we're going to actually take it off safe and capture the hammer and lower it against the frame. And we're going to make sure that we've cleaned off any of the buildup on the actual hammer assembly. Make sure especially that underneath here, where the sear catches, that is free of debris, and actually you don't want to have a whole lot of lube on there either. And then the other surfaces that engage down inside the lower, make sure that those are also free of debris and fouling. Make sure that your safety the drum of your safety is moving freely. When the hammer is forward, it will not actually turn all the way, but just make sure that it's not binding or gritty. And then we're actually going to cock this back. And then as far as lubrication goes, we're going to put a little dab on just the tiniest little touch around on the safety mechanism, so that remains well lubricated. That makes the actuation of the safety nice and smooth, which you want to make sure that that's true. Make sure that your buffer and the buffer retainer are in good working order. And I will put a little drop here. Make sure that that doesn't get bound. If that does get unlubed, with the amount of fouling that happens, this can get actually stuck, which means that your bolt will not hold open correctly or release correctly. So, and then the last thing to check is your mag release. It's another area that can get bound up with fouling, so double check function on that and put just a tiniest little drop top and bottom. Let gravity take the rest through there. And that's it. So now we can tap the takedown pins back in place and we'll be done. So this is where that non-marring head will come into play. And then same with the rear. Check for function. You should see the little bit of a glisten there on the bolt. And you're all set. Back together.